Today's guest is a true force in British architecture. Chris Williamson, President of the Royal Institute of British Architects, co-founder of Weston Williamson Partners. Chris has shaped some of the UK's most iconic transport hubs, including the Elizabeth Line in London and Bridge Station. With a career spanning over 4 decades, he's been a mentor, innovator, and advocate for sustainable urban design. Now, as the RIBA President, he is on a mission to elevate the profession, tackle climate change, and embrace the future of architecture through lifelong learning and technology. Welcome, Chris.
Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
We'll just want to start off with sort of the first question, really, about yourself. But you've said you want RIBA to do more for young architects. In recent events and in recent recordings of yourself, you have said you want to give back. So looking back at it, what was it like when you were first starting off within the industry, and how have things changed since then?
Changed an awful lot. I mean, just in terms of the technology, that's been an amazing change. But also the practice of architecture. The thing that got me interested in architecture in the first place was a book I read, which described everything that an architect did. And it was about working with the community, not just for the client, not just doing what the client told you, but having more of a vision for society. And at that time, architects got paid a fee, a fixed fee. So that was sort of the first thing that changed. So by the time Andrew and I had finished studying, that had all changed. But the technology has been probably the biggest change. And looking forward, that's going to continually be the case. I mean, every profession changes all the time, and every institute needs to change in order to adapt to that. But the reason I wanted to stand as president was RIBA has always been incredibly good to me and Andrew in our career. It was where we started in 1985, 40 years ago. The 40 under 40 exhibition, which there was people like Stanton and Williams, Amanda Levitt, Allies and Morrison, and Allsop and Lyle. And we were encouraged by the RIBA. We were given help. We were put on shortlists for competitions. And even if you didn't win them, you felt like you were going somewhere and you were having an opportunity. And that's what I want to see the RIBA do more of, and give the new generation of architects. You know, it was a sort of gave you a reason. You felt part of a fantastic profession, and it was where all the best talks, all the best lectures, all the best exhibitions and competitions were, and it was something you wanted to be part of. And so I think we need to get back to that, and that's what I see. What I would like to try and do.
That's incredible. I mean, one of the things that I felt as an architect practicing is the events that we were able to attend, whether if it's in Birmingham or in London, and it brings a group of, whether you're starting out or you've had years and years of experience. The one that we did with it was the last month, wasn't it? And you just bring different minds together, and then you talk about issues, talk about climate change, you talk about how to decarbonize. And I think as a society and a community of architects, being able to share that and collaborate, it's absolutely, you know, it's not something that other profession actually have or as frequently do.
Knowledge share, isn't it?
Yeah.
RIBA is at the forefront now. I mean, like I mentioned, the Decarbonising Architects event.
Right.
RIBA London, they're pushing for more student engagement. RIBA West Midlands, they held a panel discussion recently to discuss about design in the second city. So there are these opportunities coming forward.
Yeah, I think it's really important to continue to keep learning and learn from each other. And we have, as architects, a lot of specialisms. Climate change is one of them, but people, you know, we have great experts in sustainability and in heritage conservation, AI.
Yeah.
So some of our profession are at the cutting edge of AI, and others are burying their head in the sand about hoping it goes away.
Yeah.
It's not going to.
It doesn't go away, no. It's only going to get.
And we need to stress those specialisms, I think, and make sure politicians and decision makers know that we have those specialisms. Because otherwise we're just seen as generalists and we're sort of marginalised. So getting more political influence is a big thing in what I want to do in the next 2 years.
Oh, that's incredible. Was it any? I think AB was wondering about this. Was there any point in your career or in your early career where you felt there was a moment that shifted? For example, I can't describe for myself, but because at the moment I'm making a transition from one practice to another. We had a session recording last month, and then the title was Midlife Crisis or New Challenges. So was there any point in your career early on, where you felt like you've made a leap, or whether if it's a project that you're ascertaining, or whether if it's a career change that you've done?
It never seems to happen like that, and I don't think it does for most architects. I mean, even if you win, there was one time we won a competition against 300 entries, an international competition. We got down to the last 5, and then we won that, and it was for a laboratory project in Boston, in Massachusetts, and you tend to think, oh, we've made it, but you never have. That project lasted 2 years, and it was built, and you've always got to win the next one. So there's never, and I think looking back on anybody's career, even Norman Foster or Richard Rogers, you can never look back on their career and think, oh, that's what made them. Because when Centre Pompidou finished, Richard Rogers didn't have any work. It's not automatic that you win the next one.
Right.
And I guess it's the same with actors and actresses. You do one great film, you're not necessarily a shoo-in for the next part, or it's not guaranteed that next part is going to be a success. Or if you're a musician, the second album is a really difficult one. So I don't looking. It's easier for me looking back and thinking, but there's never been one thing. The only, I guess, looking back, the repeat business that we've had when we won the Jubilee Line project and got repeat business from that was probably the biggest thing. But that, in a way, was an accident, a complete accident, because we'd done another competition before that for the Port of Tilbury for a £6 million office block, which was an RIBA competition, which they shortlisted for. We actually won it. And we did all the working drawings, we did all the planning application. We were just about to go out to tender. And it was 1989, the financial crash, when we came out of the European monetary mechanism. And the interest rates went up, and they just decided, we can't afford to do this. We're not going to get the rents. It was financially unviable. So we'd got some money in the bank, so we got paid for what we did. But the main job that we had, we'd lost. So we did a competition, which was for Venice bus station. And we got commended for it. But Paoletti, who was the Italian architect for the Jubilee Line, saw it, liked it, and put us on the shortlist for Jubilee Line. So it's pretty random the way life takes you, but if you stick with it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We might have, if it wasn't for the financial crash, we might have had a career doing office buildings, but by doing something else, we've had repeat business in transport, and it's not been the career that I thought it was going to be, but it's been fantastic, and we've been able to work in lots of cities around the world doing great city shaping transport projects. So, but you just have to go where life takes you.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to touch upon, because you spoke quite a bit about competitions there. What's your view then, or how do you think you'll maybe change how the RIBA competitions work, or in general? Because lots of small practices will say they're having to put in weeks and months sometimes worth of work to create 3, 4, 5 panels for the competition, but then there's no guarantee that they get the job. And then sometimes there's requirements such as you need to have a certain social impact contribution or certain charitable contribution, certain low carbon footprint. So small practices are missing out on these competitions and tenders. So is there something that you could maybe suggest, or is there some work wrong?
No, definitely. I think some competitions ask for too much work, and they give you all these room adjacencies, which you have to plough through. You have to do an awful lot of work. The competitions that we always do, and the ones that I advocate, are the ones where they're looking for ideas. They're looking for, this is the site, this is what we want to do. And going back to that one in Boston, it took us a weekend to do, and we did all the drawings in a weekend, and they were looking for ideas, and they were very specific about that. And then we did another one for Urban Splash in Manchester, and they were very specific about just looking for how would you tackle this, and not looking for an awful lot of work. And that we've also ran competitions for we ran a competition for Victoria Station, and interviewed 10 artists. And a lot of them had done a lot of work in order to try and win it. But Rachel Whiteread, who actually won it, just came with an A4 sheet of paper and read it out.
Right.
And it was just brilliant. She'd spent the time thinking about it.
Yeah.
And said, this is what I will do. She didn't show us anything other than explain what she was going to do. And it was wonderful. So they're the sort of competitions that I think RIBA should be running. And, and gives young architects a chance to say, this is what I will do, not expecting lots of drawings, because young architects can't compete with that. And, but I think having the opportunity to say how you would tackle this is the right approach.
So resolving an issue, selling an idea. And it's what we do in life, isn't it? Everything we do in life is about actually. We have this image of architects. We do really beautiful drawings and pretty drawings and renders and stuff. But I think the core value of the profession is actually problem solving. From the beginning all the way to completion of the project. Every step of the way, you're looking at a challenge, whether it's on a site or a constraint, and then you're going through the process of resolving those issues. And it's like, at the beginning of design stage, your building is almost very fuzzy, but then along the way, all the way to completion, it becomes this holistic thing. And it's the same whether if you're studying architecture school or if you're in the profession, the review panels that we go to, for example, BCU, we do these crits, and then sometimes you do the first crit after they've started out in the beginning of the project, and in everything, they seem like they're lost. They don't know what they're doing. But then through the process, if the final project is always quite fascinating, how they've actually arrived there and the amount of stuff that they've gone through. And it's the same process everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is a journey. And I think that's whatever school of architecture you go to, the degree course, wherever it is, does help you think and problem solve, and that's what we're good at. I think there's lots of things that we could do, like business skills and more about marketing and how to be more empathetic to people, to clients, which we will also need to learn. But I think in terms of design skills, that's something our universities do excel at, is how to solve problems and creating opportunities for people.
So we've established that architecture school teaches us how to think about space, solve problems, but then I think we can unanimously agree that architecture school doesn't teach us the business side of things. Maybe if you can touch on how you first started out, yourself and Andrew, and then did you do anything additional beyond just architectural education to upskill yourself in terms of how to operate a business, and then when you then grew into an internationally renowned and international based organization?
So both Andrew went to work for Richard Rogers, and I went to work for Michael Hopkins, and we both almost failed our part 3, because the part 3 exam in those days was all geared around the JCT traditional form of contract, and neither of us were doing that. I mean, if you're working for an architect like that, there's lots of specialist subcontractors, so generally you employ a management contractor to
Right.
coordinate all the different subcontractors. And so we had to learn about the JCT from other projects and from reading.
Yeah.
And, we just about scraped through. But that was a great learning curve because working for those sorts of practices, you learn a lot about design, but you sort of
Right.
divorced from the contract running of it because that's all being done by, say, Bovis or Lang, or in those days, they were the main people we were working with. So what I did before we started Weston Williamson was did a project management course, a master's course at the South Bank. And the two good things about that was there was actually two architects. One was Morley von Sternberg, who gave up a career in architecture to be one of the best architectural photographers in the country. He still is, I think.
That's me.
That's
And
me.
but there was only Morley and I on the course from an architectural background. So the good thing about it was there was lots of surveyors and lots of budding property developers. So not only did you get to learn about project management,
Right.
but there was potential young clients as well. So we did some of our early schemes were for those clients, young people doing interesting things, and it just gave you an opportunity to sort of start building a business. But I think I would like to see more management skills taught.
More entrepreneurial side of architecture.
Yeah, because I mean, all the client surveys that the RIBA carries out is about we're great designers. The clients are happy with our design skills, but they're less satisfied with our ability to manage a project and making sure it gets built on time and on budget, and also being listening to what the client wants and making sure we satisfy the client.
Right.
And not always just want to do something more interesting, and being more controlling about design changes. So I think there's certain things we need to get better at, and that's what I would like to do with my plans for lifelong learning, is to make sure we have specialist skills. And I kind of think in some ways that the architectural profession should be more like the advertising agencies, where there's a creative team that does the design and gets it the best possible way. And then there's a client team, an accounts team that looks after the money, make sure the client's satisfied. Because in a way, they're different sides of the brain.
Yeah.
And you can't expect somebody to do everything brilliantly. Some architects can. And the reason historically we've done that is because it's a hang-up from sort of Christopher Wren and being the master builder and doing everything.
That's
But also the fact that most of the profession is one-man bands or small practices. So you have to do everything. I think if you allow people to specialise or continually have better skills in those areas, then we would all improve.
I mean, as someone that have done projects, I mean, maybe you've done that as well. Whilst working in an office, because I started out doing a lot of private residential work, and then that carries on. But then there's always kind of like an awkward conversation where you've done the work and you're ready to submit planning, but you haven't been paid yet. And then you sort of have to write that email where you feel like, because you connect with the client, as you do this hand-holding process of getting them from a design or a vision they had in their mind, and then up to planning they're happy with, and then all of a sudden, by the way, can you close this invoice? And then it's not something that I always enjoyed, but I guess, like you said, if you're a one-man band, that's.
But yeah, I mean that's historically it's always been like that. I mean,
Right.
if you look at Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo getting paid, or even I've read recently that some of the letters of Corbusier, he was writing to the Prime Minister or the President, can't remember which, of Pakistan who wanted him to design a house. And he said, well, I'll design your house, but first can you make sure that I get paid for that town hall that I did? Because you're getting paid. And that's another thing we're not particularly good at, is having those negotiating skills. I mean, everybody else seems to manage it. Lawyers, doctors, you can't do anything with that.
Admittedly, my trick for that is, it sounds awkward, but sometimes you have that personal relationship with the clients that you do domestic side jobs for. So to make it less awkward, certainly for me anyways, I'll compose the email and then I won't sign it off as my name. I'll put a different name, make it your name, so it makes it look like it's come from a PA or a secretary or an accountant chasing invoices. And then they'll obviously then pick up the phone, give me a call, saying, oh yeah, sorry, did you get the email? I asked so-and-so to send it through. So it breaks it down a little bit, makes it somewhat less awkward. That's the only way I think works for me.
Yeah, you have to almost, it's a mentality. I feel like you have to separate.
We have to be stronger, isn't it? Because at the end of that, I mean, if you were to describe to someone who doesn't know what architecture is or what an architect does, ultimately, we are jack of all trades.
In a way, yeah. You have to have a broad range of skills.
Strong disciplines. I mean, if you're working on, for instance, design-based stage projects, you've got to be able to analyze the site, you've got to engage with the stakeholders, it's got to be public interaction.
Yeah.
And then if you're delivering schemes, then you've got to have the ability to be able to resolve the details, the junction details, the material make of the building. So we have to know almost everything. And now with Gateway 2 and building safety regulator, if you're working in high-rise buildings, we need to be able to demonstrate our competency.
Yeah.
Every choice that we put in, every decision that we make, we can't just leave it to someone else now. Yeah. We can't say, to be confirmed by a specialist or a structural engineer or a consultant. We have to have that competency and confidence in what they're suggesting. So therefore, we have to upskill ourselves. There's so much that we need to learn.
Yeah, and continually, and then it will keep changing as well. But I think in the bigger practices, you do get more specialists. I mean, the bigger practices would employ their own sustainability consultants, their own lawyers often, their own financial advisors. Smaller practices don't do that, and they have to do all of that themselves. I mean, that's where the RIBA can help, is just pointing them in the right direction. How do you do a sustainability and environmental statement? You know, how do you get onto tenders for procurement? That the big practices do that. Yeah, because they've got the resources, they've got the processes in place. But the smaller practices need help.
I have a question, just circling back to, because we touch base on many different things, but I always wondered, for someone like you, Chris, that you've come through many years of sort of resilience through architecture. There was one person in my life who I call a mentor, and then he's made a significant impact on how I see the profession. And then for good, for bad, I'm always thankful. I wonder if there was a person that had that sort of impact for you, and then what was it that, if there's something that you remember throughout your career and something that he's taught you or she has taught you, would you mind sharing that with us?
There hasn't been one person. There's been a whole series. I think you're lucky in life if you have sort of a handful of people that get you from one stage to the next. So you have to continually grow.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's the great thing about our profession, is that there are people that are keen to help you. And so when we were trying to win the Jubilee Line project, Ron Heron gave us a lot of help, because he'd already won one of the stations, and he talked me through what you needed to do. You need to get the design right, but you need to also demonstrate. London Underground are very into the process, so you need to understand. You need to talk their language, and you need to. There was people at Michael Hopkins, which were wonderful people like Mark Sutcliffe, who became a partner at Foster's, and Ian Sharrett, who was just brilliant with people and brilliant with the client. So people that you learn a lot from lots of different people, I think.
Yeah.
But I think architects will help. And if you pick up the phone and say, look, I've got a problem, but, you know, Andrew and I, when we didn't have any work, you know, there was always people that would help. We have Richard Horden with a competition on Trafalgar Square, Grand Buildings, and we helped Terry Farrell with a competition for a station in Sweden, and with his Newtown in outside Cambridge. So there's always people that will help you along the way. But as people, we're always afraid of asking.
That's what I was going to say.
They say no.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
But that's what I always think. What's the worst that can happen? You know, they might say no. But then that's it. You just have to keep trying.
That's something we've been advocating on our podcast. Is one thing that I've sort of understood in my mere 10 years.
10 years in professional practice.
Yeah, is to have a little bit of a thick skin, but not in a way where you sort of just won't leave people alone. But like you said, simply ask, and most of us, it's because we're a collaborative profession, and it's for me, I want to see people that I work with, whether if it's a part 1 or part 2 or doing a part 3, and share my knowledge with them. And actually, do you know what? I'm working on a project at the moment, and then the new generations they've got so many ideas, and I think what makes a really good senior architect or someone that's in a management level, if you may, is to actually listen as well at the same time, because some of those ideas it could be something, because you can very well get stuck in a drawing or a problem that you just can't see outside of it. But then someone comes on.
New set of eyes, fresh. Chris, for this segment, we'll talk a little bit more about sort of the student body. I know you're advocating for positive change and a lot more support from the RIBA for the students. One of the key things that's affected, not me directly, but I guess the future generation, is the defunding of the level 7 degree apprenticeship. I myself, as a level 7 degree apprentice, I've seen the value and the benefit it brings, being in practice, but also studying at the same time, and being surrounded by great mentors within the office, but also great institutional tutors and peers, like-minded peers. And then with the lack of funding now, it's maybe making architecture a bit more, or less equitable rather. Because A is an expensive degree. We don't earn enough, unfortunately. And we don't get taught at college level that the loan that we take out is compounding interest. So by the time you graduate, A, you're already not earning enough to pay it back. When you do start paying it back, the interest just ramps up and up. Is there anything that potentially, A, if you have a view on it first and foremost, and B, is there something that RIBA can potentially do going forward? Is there a conversation that can be had with the political powers within our country?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were both at the RIBA London Student Awards. Now, I think if we'd have been able to attract a couple of politicians there and be able to see the level, the quality of work and the enthusiasm of it, I think we need to get better. I mean, you can't blame a Labour government for looking at the whole apprenticeship scheme and examining, is the money going to the right people? I think that's what they've done, and that, you know, it's sort of our own worst enemy in a way, because a lot of the apprentices are middle class, and that, you know, we have to, and they want the money to go to people that are more that need the help more if when money's short. But we have to be better at making the argument why it's important. And so I would, in answer to your question, I think the degree course is fantastic. And if you can do that by an apprenticeship course, and then there's lots of different models, but I would like to see lifelong learning. I think there's too much focus on the part 2 and the part 3 exams, rather than looking at the whole arc of your career and making sure that by the time you're 35, you have a more rounded skills and assessing those skills. So in our Weston Williamson in order for anybody to get a bonus at the end of the year, we didn't just examine their technical skills and the work that they did. We also had a matrix of 15 other things which looked at the contribution to the office life, and how they related to their fellow workers.
Right.
And so I think we need to be more rounded in the way that we assess people in the arc of a career, and allowing people to curate their own career. I don't need to know what a stair riser needs to be, a stair tread. I need to know that that's important. I need to know who in the office knows that. But I think in the arc of your career, you need to know different things, and you need to demonstrate that you know the different things. We shouldn't want everybody to know the same thing. Not everybody needs to have the same knowledge, but they need to know that it's important.
Right. And just touching upon that then, are there any, when you're actively involved full-time within Weston Williamson, when you used to hire people, particularly in the early part, but also when you grew to a large organisation, what qualities did you look out for, particularly at sort of when you're applying for or hiring part ones and part twos and recently qualified architects? Was there anything that for you was a standout within these applicants, or was there something that you generalised across the board? You wanted certain qualities or traits in every applicant?
I used to get a lot of criticism for the people that I hired, but looking back, I mean, most of the people that are now partners are the ones that I hired, and then so you hire people and they eventually replace you, which is the way that it should be. But I think I always look for enthusiasm, and you can tell when somebody's when they're interested, the
passion.
Because I think so. I know in other places they have technical skills and they sit you down in the computer for 2 hours to see what you can do. I tend to think if you're passionate about something, particularly when you're a part one, you can learn those technical skills. If you've only got technical skills and you don't have the passion,
right?
To me, so that's what I look for, and it's. I think that's what I would. That's just the way that I think that you should choose somebody. Is Then I was sitting next to the head of EMI, the music company, and he discovered really great artists. And I said, how do you know when somebody walks into the room? How do you know that they're going to be great? He said, well, because he now has to train his people to make those same decisions. And he said, well, it always has to add up to 10. Whatever. It might be somebody like David Bowie, who is just so wacky and so bright that is going to make it. He might not have written a decent song yet, but that he's going to, because he's, and and he tried for years and years to do something and never got anywhere. But then he was so passionate about what he did that you knew he was going to be a success. It was just a matter of time. But then other people maybe have got a bit of songwriting, but they've got a lot of different things that add up to 10. So it doesn't have to be one thing, but it could be lots of different things. So I think, there's lots of failed musicians, lots of failed architects, lots of failed artists, and they would never tell you to follow your passion, but because at some stage you don't always have that opportunity. You can't. Not everybody can win a part in the next Harry Potter film. There's lots of actors that don't actually make it. But if you're not passionate about what you do,
then you definitely won't make
going
it.
to happen.
You have to keep going.
Just one more, just to put you on the spot really here. There's been a lot of pressure coming onto RIBA recently across sort of LinkedIn and social platforms with recently qualified architects, but also part ones and part twos in terms of the whole salary debate. Because the RIBA salary guide, it's not necessarily a guide as such, because it was carried out the year before, and then employers are still using that as a benchmark. So is there something that can be done potentially? I mean, I don't, does the RIBA first of all have a power to put in a salary threshold for different qualifications, first and foremost? And number two is, how can we shake it up a little bit to ensure that there is pay equity and everyone is paid accordingly?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest complaint about architects, not just young architects, but generally. And you can't pay people more if your fees are low. So we've got to raise the fees. We've got to get more money in. We've got to demonstrate our value. So that's what I want to help do. I think specialisms and being able to demonstrate your specialism. So if you want to concentrate on sustainability or heritage or conservation, then you do lifelong learning modules for that. So for 5 years, then you can go to another employer and say, look, this is my specialism. And then you're not competing with everybody else. You're competing with a narrower band to get a better salary. And the same with clients. If you've got demonstrable skills, you're going to be worth more. Certainly in the field of specialising in transport, it makes it a lot easier to go to another country and say, look, we've got these skills, and rather than trying to say we're an architect. And there's lots of good architects in Australia, but we've actually done it quite well because we've had a specialism. So I think we have to look at, nobody's going to pay us more just because we want to be paid more. We have to demonstrate what we can do and argue for it and demonstrate why we should get paid more. And I think that nobody goes out ever, I don't think, to always pay the lowest thing possible. When you go shopping for a suit or a car or whatever it is, you're not just looking at what can I buy is the cheapest. Yeah. It's about value for money, and that's what we've got to get better at, is convincing people. And then there'll be more fee. If there's more fees, there'll be more salary.
Then how do you then reassure the student body almost within the industry? Because tomorrow the Pay 100 salary guide report comes out. Yeah. Should this responsibility not fall upon RIBA instead? Should RIBA not actively carry out either salary reports or B, set benchmarks? Because practices undoubtedly are still using the RIBA's old salary guide as a benchmark, which is the year before. Yeah. So therefore, the youngsters are getting underpaid.
It's not really rocket science to just add the inflation.
But that's the thing.
To it. But I think that's what we've got to do. Yeah. Is just there are lots of salary guides out there. I mean, most of the agencies like Bespoke publish them, so we know what the salaries are. It's what we need to do is to make sure that we can pay them. Yeah. And we shouldn't rely on the minimum wage to ratchet up our salaries.
The question is because I was at VCU this morning at a university in Birmingham, and they've got 150 students in year one. Yeah. There's not 150 jobs out there by the time they all graduate, unfortunately. So, what is it about the profession that it's drawing students in? Great, it's positive, right? But there's not enough jobs to go around, first and foremost, and there definitely isn't enough money to go around. There's not enough distribution. So I've been advocating with the students saying, look, you're studying architecture undergrad or master's level. It doesn't mean you have to be an architect. You could utilize those skills that we're learning. It's a vocational course, it's a vocational degree. Utilize those skills elsewhere, maybe go into visualization or go into graphics, go into photography, videography, diversify yourself. Don't be, unless you're 100% passionate. I mean, we're obviously passionate people about architecture, so we're driven by it. But if you're not 100% motivated by architecture, then you have to lifelong learning, but you have to also diversify yourself. Yeah. Because the salaries and the fees aren't there, unfortunately, for us.
Yeah, so I've been mentoring 2 young people, and both of those have gone into management. And they'll probably go on to have a more influential career in architecture than they would have done as designers, probably. And I think it's just as important that we use people that are in the construction industry as a whole, or the property industry. And they'll go on to be fantastic clients or fantastic managers. So we we shouldn't necessarily think we want everybody that starts an architecture course to end up as an architect. We want them to be involved in the industry somehow, whether they're school governors that commission an architect. But I'm always amazed whenever I go to schools of architecture, which I do a lot, at the level of enthusiasm and energy, even despite all the student debt. They, and everybody knows that it's not the best paid profession, but everybody's passionate about getting there and starting that career. So we are doing something right, but we just need to get better at being better paid.
Yeah.
And it depends who you compare yourself to. I mean, I don't know who deserves to be paid more, a nurse or a refuse collector or an architect or a doctor. I'm not advocating of communist society, but I think we do. It is very difficult to decide who gets paid more, but certainly architects should be paid more. And because I think, but there is, we need to get across that argument that we actually do save money, and there's lots of research about good environment save the national health money, and that they're the arguments that we need to win. And I think most of the good developers understand that. If you look at the work that, say, Derwent London do, they don't employ the cheapest architects they can. They create great places because they know that's what sells and that's what their clients want. So I think we need to get that message across to more people and not just rely on the good developers, but get the work out there. And that's what I want to try and do. But we need to always look at what we can do rather than saying, well, we want to be paid more. Nobody's going to pay you more just because you want it. You have to build that argument.
That's probably, probably circling back to the lifelong learning. As an architect and as a registered with the RIB and ARB, obviously we now do the CPD. We log our hours, and it's a compulsory thing. Why should an architect look into the lifelong learning aspect? And I think this is probably a question for young architects or whoever who's practicing. What benefit could they get out of doing this?
So I played
What's
tennis.
the vision, really?
I played tennis with an 18-year-old guy a couple of months ago, and he was saying, I'm just doing my A-levels. I can't wait till I never do another exam ever again. And I said, well, I'm nearly 70. I'm still doing exams. You have to continually learn. I wouldn't want to go to a doctor for anything, knowing that he hasn't learned anything since he was at medical school. We all have to continually improve. And I think if you have a specialism, you get better pay. I think that's the way that lawyers operate. It's the way that doctors operate. When you have a specialism, you generally get paid more and you're more valuable. So I might be wrong, but that's what I would like to see. And then we can stress our specialisms to decision makers and make sure that they appreciate and get more political influence because of that. And that also, there are lots of institutes around the world. I had a meeting with the Pakistan Institute of Architects. They don't do any lifelong learning.
Oh, wow.
So, we can actually help people around the world collaborating with them. Brazil, Mexico, Korea, and help raise the standard of the built environment everywhere.
So I guess a sub-question to that then. You mentioned categories earlier. You mentioned that sustainability or conservation architecture can be a category where an architect can be interested in and specialist in. So do you have an idea of what sort of categories that you have? Is this something that you're building already, or is it something that you've got a plan for?
So you'd have sectors. transport or hospitals, healthcare, schools, but you'd also have management skills as well, business skills or financial skills. I think, there's lots of things that we need to get better at, which you can. I think the reason a lot of people don't like CPD at the moment is because it's quite clunky to fill in, and you've got. Yeah. I think if you did it online, all the things that I've done recently, I'm just qualified as a premium assessor. It's online, and it's really, it takes about 120 hours, but I can only fill in 2 hours of my logbook. Yeah. Because I have to fill in all these other things. Yeah. So if I want to specialise in that, I should be able to do that and become a specialist and be recognised as a specialist. But I think the reason why people don't like CPD is it's cumbersome. I think the ones I've done, if you don't pass them, you just go back and do them again. They're usually multiple choice, and you have to remember what you said the last time. Right. But it's actually quite a good way, for me anyway, of learning. You learn a lot by doing that, and it takes the angst out of studying. And if for young people, the fact that you do part 3 exam, and if you don't pass it, you've got to wait another 6 months or a year to do. In my world, you do it by lifelong learning modules, and you pass it. And if you didn't pass it, you just go back
and do it again.
It takes out all the stress. Yeah. And you actually, it's actually a really good way of learning.
Is this something that RIBA has already rolled out, or is it something in the process?
The great thing about becoming, so that's it. This is the end of my second month as president. So you have a build-up period to it as well. Yeah. But I've actually found that a lot of the things that I wanted to do, that you have to campaign to be elected, are actually being done. They're being started. Okay. So I just need to make sure that there's a great sense of urgency in getting them done. But there is actually a matrix which has the same sort of core competences, right, but also allows people to specialise. So a lot of the things that I've said I wanted to do, I've actually been pleasantly surprised to find out that they have actually been started.
And then will this service, will this lifelong learning aspect, will it be addition to the RIBA membership, or is it something that will be inclusive as part of the RIBA membership that architects have to
do? I think it has to be inclusive in the membership, but just allow you to have a specialism. Okay. And I think it will be valuable not just for, post Grenfell, we all have to get better at the whole of the building industry, not just architects. But I think a lot of the lifelong learning could be applicable to other institutes and industry, throughout the industry.
From this conversation, what sort of grasped my attention, what interests me about the lifelong learning is that, for example, you can look up any architect. Yeah. And what would be really cool is that once you've got the person's name, and then if that person is doing different courses of lifelong learning, say, for example, they specialize in sustainability, and after they've done the course, they've gone through a period of however many hours that they may have studied, they get accreditation for it. Yeah. And then under the title, you've got the sustainability expertise credential for it
from the RIBA,
and from the RIBA.
So that's exactly what I'd like to see, the initials RIBA as a qualification. Yeah, and then you find out what that person has done. So the Victorians set up all these learned societies, and they're not relevant to most young people now. We get all our knowledge from different places, so you have to make it relevant to young people if you want to encourage them to join. And that's why I joined, because I saw it as being something that was important. It was in all the talks and lectures and exhibition. It makes it a brand that you want to be associated with. We shouldn't be trying to talk people into joining. We should be making it the sort of place that you want to join because of the values that it holds, and changing it from a Victorian learned society to a badge of expertise is where I think we need to get to.
I completely agree with you in terms of the CPD being a bit clunky and bland. Personally, when I was at house, or whether it's when I'm at my current practice, the CPDs normally that the practice carry out within the office is to invite someone, come in, and then talk about it. And a lot of the time it's about a product, yeah. which is why I think makes it a little bit dry. But I think I would love to learn more about sustainability and how it could actually practically be implemented within the design. So obviously, as architects, we all know, your concrete stands. If you keep them shorter and longer, that's a huge saving. Exactly. But there is so much more to it than just that. And I think, like you said, if an architect has a special interest in a certain topic, and then they can actually dive into that in this library that you might create as a from the RIBA, I would most certainly. But it's about also how do you actually make it interactive enough for people to. Is it going to be a video thing? Is it going to be something a literature that you read, or is it going to be someone?
I think for too long there's been too much product-based CPD, and you have 30 people in the room listening to a roof light salesman, basically.
Yeah.
And then maybe only one person, if you're lucky, in that room is relevant to, but you can all tick off an hour's worth of CPD, and that's bonkers. Yeah. So, but I think if you had a whole series of videos that were tailored to what you want to know about, whether it was Steve Webb talking about sustainable stone construction, or Andy Downey talking about timber construction as an engineer, and really the best people talking about the specialist subjects, and or people talking about management, or and then you have to answer questions, and then in a perfect world, in my world, which I just probably, you wouldn't be able to pay your RIBA subscription until you've done your course, until you've ticked, because it's all online, unless you've done it and passed it. Yeah. And people are saying, well, why would I be a member of an institute where you're making it harder for me to
get that membership? Yeah.
So then it would actually mean something. It would mean that you're growing.
Precisely, yeah.
Whereas at the moment you're paying your money for something that doesn't actually, you can't convince the guy down the road that you're better than the guy that hasn't done the CPD. So that's why I'm passionate about it. Whenever I go to China or Singapore or Malaysia, and I see their thirst for knowledge and the way that they want to learn the whole time, want to get better. We've got to get that back in Europe and in North America. We've got to get that passion back for learning. Because if you make it fun, it actually makes us all better. And the way to grow the economy is not to put tariffs on everything. Yeah. It's to actually do things better. No. There are things that people want. And that's why I'm passionate about it.
That's actually really exciting.
I was going to ask, I'm not an architect yet, so I don't need to formally do my CPD records, but as practice, we're encouraged to complete 30 or 40 hours per year. But speaking of sort of how much passion you talk about lifelong learning, when can the membership expect to see this put into place and be implemented first and foremost? And are there disciplines that you've already you mentioned Web Yates potentially discussing about sustainable structures. Have you got other names or other disciplines that you've already maybe secured or have an agreement in place with who might be able to deliver these CPDs? Most importantly, when is it going to be live?
So that's what we're working towards. So the working towards being able to curate your own career, and then first of all you have to have the website. So that's what we're spending money on at the moment, making sure the website can contain all of that lifelong learning, and then you'll be able to do it on the tube or on the bus or on the train, and you know, at your own convenience rather than having to sit down with a lunchtime sandwiches.
It's like a masterclass.
Then, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I think that's how young people learn anyway.
Yeah.
You know, through TED Talks, TikTok, and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got to embrace to all get better.
You will be the way that you've described it is that you'll be an interactive, you will be a fun, you will be a
engaging
way of masterclass. Because actually hearing it from you firsthand, it's actually quite exciting because it does a few things from the way I understand it, is that because I've always advocated for well-rounded architects, and I don't think that contradicts with what you're proposing, Chris, at all, because having a speciality, it sort of narrows your
attention and your focus on one thing rather than having to resolve every little thing.
Precisely, but at the same time, you mentioned earlier, you know who to go to for a certain problem, and I think that's something that we all need to start doing. Is that you can't do everything. Even currently, I'm designing a building, and then you can't. As an architect, you're passionate about what you do and you care about your project, so you try to do everything. You try to manage everything, but at the same time, you physically don't have the time to do it. And So hearing it from Chris, it's actually.
I think it does sound like it makes architecture a bit more equitable, because if it's all available under the RIBA name under the membership, then people like myself or Dad, we don't have to go out externally to seek this knowledge. It's all available within this one membership. So I guess it makes it a bit more equitable, accessible,
and I
inviting.
think it would also encourage diversity in the profession. You know, people know that there's a route into architecture which doesn't involve 5 years full-time study, and the student that takes up, and you're able to do it at your own pace. If you wanted to do it in, post-grad 2 years or 10 years, I mean, we've got people in our office that take a long time before they do their part 3. You know, it's not. You can go on. You can have a great career in architecture without becoming a chartered architect.
Yeah.
Or go into the film industry or robotics or something. We shouldn't be too parochial about this hang-up that we've got about we've all got to be an architect.
Yeah.
That's our part 3. It doesn't actually work like that anymore.
We spoke to one of our guests a couple of months ago now. Is a young student, just finished her part 1.
Yeah.
And then again, she knows all the risks. She knows how long it takes. She knows how difficult it is, and a journey, especially coming from like AB, like myself. But then she's still very passionate about what she wanted to do. When we asked her, and she was so sure, she was, absolutely sure, I want to do part 2, I want to do part 3, and this is exactly what I want to do. I think your lifelong learning will actually provide the course that you provide will actually give her that niche that she's keen about. And what was Laura? It was Laura, and what was her? She's keen about.
Specialized in sort of humanitarian architecture. For places that have been either hit with conflict or natural disasters. To go and teach them how to use vernacular materials, similar to what Yasmin Larry does in Pakistan, I suppose.
Yeah.
So she's really passionate about it, and she works with a lot of hand drawings and paintings. Yeah. So she struggled to find a job. I think she's got a job now.
Yeah.
But initially she struggled because lots of practices wanted to see the digital skills, software skills. Yeah. But she had a bit more hand drawing.
Well, there's one guy at Hopkins that I worked with, Graham Saunders, who went to the AA and he did the most esoteric projects at the AA, but he ended up working with the Red Cross on disaster relief, and had a fantastic career in that. So those architecture courses do lead to other things. He didn't become a sort of conventional architect, but he did very important work.
So it was whilst we were talking about all of this, and then there was a question that popped into my mind, and it's for the younger audiences that's seeking for a job and then they're looking to go through their interviews. When we go into an interview, whilst we might be very passionate about things, we might still sometimes say the wrong things. If you are interviewing a new generation, let's say part 1, part 2, what might know, what's the one thing that would make you instantly, I wouldn't say reject, but put that CV in the back pile? One thing that they might do or say in the interview you got, which you instantly felt is a
turn off, it's a red flag.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often because I'm quite broad-minded and liberal, and I'm always keen to give people a second chance. But I remember once there was one guy wrote saying how much he liked our practice and wanted to work for us, and he liked all our work. But then he copied it into about 10 other practices. And I just wrote back to say, do you like all of that? And I probably should have given him a second chance. But when people do those sorts of things, that's not a good look.
No.
Because you kind of think, well, if he does that, would he do this? If it started work, would he do the same thing?
Yeah.
It's that level of care.
Yeah.
And also calling you by your wrong name, or not going to the interview and knowing what that person has done.
Yeah.
That not knowing what station we design the tube line is never a good look. So I think because it's such a competitive world, you have to make sure when you go to a client interview as an architect, you don't make those sorts of mistakes.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't expect as a graduate to be able to be given the benefit of the doubt if you go to make those sorts of mistakes. But I love the variety of the people in our office, and I've just read a book by Matthew Sion, which is about why it's important to have diverse voices. And that's something I think is really important because you need to listen to diverse opinions. So not every graduate needs to be from Sheffield or from Bath or from the AA. They all need, you need a mix, and the temptation is always to hire people that are like you.
Yeah.
And that's the wrong thing to do. You
Yeah.
need to have different people with different voices.
Incredible.
Yeah, well, it's been a great conversation. Just to draw it to a close, I guess, we want to implement a thing that we'll ask every guest going forward.
Yeah.
What one skill? So, is there one skill maybe that you've consistently developed over your career over the 4 or 5 decades to make you a better architect? I know we spoke at length about lifelong learning, but is there any particular skill potentially that comes to mind?
You have to learn a lot of different skills. I mean, one of our first jobs was for a graphic designer, Andrew and I, and we were doing the interior of this design studio, a conversion of a warehouse to a design studio. And the client knew Diane Sudzik, who used to be a journalist and has written loads of books on design. I think he now runs the Design Museum. And he said to Diane Sudzik, I've just employed these guys called Weston Williamson. What do you think of them? And Diane Sudzik said, oh, they're great designers, but you wouldn't want to go out to dinner with either. And that for me, I always try and learn something from every situation. And I just thought, so he likes our design, but we've got to get better socially.
Exactly.
And it still doesn't come naturally to me. I had to sit, I shouldn't do the same. But at the Sterling Prize, I was sat next to the Duke of Gloucester for 4 hours. And I don't have an awful lot in common with the Duke of Gloucester, but you have to, you learn to converse with people. And I think as an architect, we always have to get better in different social, in lots of things that we do, because that's the world that we're in. And I think a lot of actors and actresses, a lot of actors are in the same boat. David Bowie always used to say that he couldn't go on stage unless he adopted a different persona. So we're all acting out a part, and I think that's what you kind of need to do.
Interesting.
So it's funny you say that, because that just reminded me, and it's dawned upon me that I think all my friends are within the same industry. Maybe we just struggle naturally to interact with people outside or beyond, because we're so passionate about what we do, right? So even in social environments, we talk about buildings.
It is really. We are very evangelical about it. It's almost like being a vicar. It's a belief. We believe that it's like a religion. That good design is better for your health and mental and physical health and your spiritual health as well. It is a passion.
Yeah.
But I played tennis on a Sunday night with a group of architects, and all of them play tennis exactly the same way that they design. And it's really so. I think you take your personality into everything that you do, and you can try and adapt it a little bit, but you can't. We all approach every problem in our own way. That's why it's such an exciting world. Nobody thinks in exactly the same way.
So I guess I'm not trying to summarize, but I guess what I got from that is actually to open your horizon a bit. Not to be confined within the art. Well, we need to be able to conversate. The reason why we're doing this as doing the podcast is to improve our way of communicating.
Yeah.
And that is a skill in itself, because you got to present your ideas in so many ways.
I think it's really important. And listen to different opinions. I mean, I used to hate Margaret Thatcher. Couldn't stand the woman. But you have to realise sometimes you're wrong. Yeah. Looking back on what she actually did, I hated the way that she did it. But actually, she changed the country in a good way as well as in a bad way.
Yeah.
A lot of the things she did, I didn't agree with, but she did change. So sometimes you have to admit that you were wrong, and she could have probably done it in a kinder, more caring way, but maybe she couldn't. That was just her way of doing it. Then you judge people a lot of the time by what they
one
do.
or two mistakes rather than the good that they bring.
That's something that I'm doing more and more recently. Actually, it's quite interesting. Chris said that it's actually lessened, because someone else might have a complete different idea, and look at this thing you're trying to resolve from a different perspective, and then it's about putting the ego aside, and whether or not if you're the project architect or you're the founder of a company, but being able to hone in everyone's idea and skill and create a beautiful thing that's that's it.
You have to collaborate. That's the industry we're in.
So that will be our new thing then. To collaborate, to learn how
and socialize, learn how to socialize. Amazing. Chris, thank you so much for first of all accepting our invitation and for accommodating us.
What you're going to make of all this.
No, it's been good. I mean, we had certain topics, and we've done it all. We've spoke about it,
because I think our podcast is a little bit different. We'll probably cut from this point onwards. Anyway, we need to clap to finish.
Yeah, are you okay to do it?
We'll get a clap. Right?
3, 2, 1.